Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Healing Parent Summit. I'm Diana Yoakley, founder of Delight in Parenting and creator of the Delight in Parenting membership, which supports parents with kids who have big feelings and challenging behavior become more resilient and emotionally healthy. And on my interview today, I'm really delighted to have here with me our next speaker for today, Hunter Clarke-Fields. Welcome, Hunter. So glad to have you here today.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really delighted because Hunter is the #1 best-selling author of Raising Good Humans, which has over 500,000 sold copies in 17 languages, and Raising Good Humans Every Day. She's also the host of Mindful Parenting Podcast, global speaker, mindfulness meditation teacher, and the creator of the Mindful Parenting course and teacher certification program. Hunter has over 20 years of experience in meditation and yoga practices and has taught mindfulness to thousands worldwide. Her work has appeared in CNBC, Make It, Parade, Motherhood Moment, The Hollywood Digest, along with NBC Boston, ABC Portland, NBC Milwaukee, Fox 29 Philadelphia, and CBS South Bend, Kansas Public Radio, and many, many other podcasts. She's the mother of 2 active daughters who challenge her every day to hone her craft. So welcome. I'm so delighted to have you here.
Thank you, Diana. I'm happy to be here. Yeah.
Yeah, so our topic today will focus on day 2, we're talking about strengthening attachment for the relationship between the parent and the child. And I know that you have a unique perspective of how mindfulness plays a role in developing more secure attachment for the parent in parenting. But before we kick it off with that, I'd love to kind of have you maybe redefine for us, what does secure attachment mean? I think sometimes there's a little bit of a differences in definitions. I'd love to hear your opinion on this.
Well, I think, the thing that's interesting about attachment is that we all have a little bit of all the different attachment styles with different people. You know,
Mm,
you can feel very securely attached in one area and one dynamic, one relationship, and then you may have avoidance or insecurity in other relationships. I think that we've become very focused on attachment style. We may have put a label on ourselves and decided it means something, but it's very fluid. It's very dynamic, and it's something that can be learned and changed. And to me, when I think of what attachment means, it really means a sense of safety, a sense of security, a sense of being at ease in oneself in the context
mhm.
of a relationship.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you're kind of pinpointing the elephant in the room where parents will maybe take like an attachment quiz or kind of opt into a definition of insecure attachment. And now they might feel disempowered, they might feel hopeless or guilt and shame over past parenting practices, feeling like, they've kind of ruined their relationship with their child forever. So there's hope, you're saying.
Yeah, and there's so much pressure on parents for like the first 3 years. I remember thinking like, "Oh my God, I've ruined my child." And
Yeah.
the truth is that everything changes so much over time and things can change and shift enormously over time. Even if certain habits and patterns that you may have from your own upbringing come out in the first 3 years and you feel like, oh my gosh, that wasn't so healthy. Maybe I was yelling, maybe I was reactive, maybe I was anxious. And now I'm wondering, am I like passing that on to my child? The thing is, as you earn your own sense of security, as you earn and practice your own sense of ease and peace, as you learn to process your own feelings and process those things like the fears and the anxieties and things like that, and heal yourself maybe, those things, then it all gets wrapped up in that parent-child relationship, and things can grow and move. I remember thinking, I remember watching my oldest child where I had, she, when she was 2, this temper came out of me and I was yelling and I was scaring her. I could see this relationship was being damaged. And I could also see she was like, then when her sister came along, my other daughter, I could see that she was imitating me in ways that were not so healthy. Like I could see her barking orders at her sister.
Yeah.
and um and I remember thinking like, as years kind of went on, a few years later, thinking, oh my gosh, I've changed so much, yet I'm not quite seeing it in my oldest daughter yet. Like I'm still seeing her kind of bark some orders and oh no, is it really forever? Have I
Yeah.
really messed it up because it was those first few years, and then time go on. And the thing is now that oldest child, she's 17. And I've seen so many ways where she has grown and changed as a person, and where she is naturally, like sometimes, her younger sister is kind of naturally a little bit more empathetic, and she's a little bit more, she's just not quite so much. She's a little bit more of like an engineering kind of type of
Yeah.
person. And,
Mhm.
but I've seen moments in her where she's so, where she's just absorbed through time and time and time, like such beautiful empathy. And like, saying, I remember I came in, I was really upset one time not too long ago. She was 17. I came in one time, I was really upset about the dog barking at somebody, and her sister, who's very attached to the dog, was like, there's nothing wrong with the dog, mom, blah 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 blah. And my older daughter's 17. She said, Sora, can't you see mom's upset? Like, mom, are you okay? Do you need a hug? And I was like, yes, I do need a hug. And it was so beautiful because I saw, oh, okay, like this is the child where I thought she was, I was so reactive with her. I've seen this combativeness in her at some certain points in time. I've worried that like she would never change, that I really messed her up. And like, no, none of that's true. Like
Mhm.
it really is very fluid kind of thing.
Yeah, I love that. It's like a pattern that can shift. And it's like a ratio, like engineering minds, right? Like it's like a proportion. So what percent of your time are you spending, disconnected versus connected, and kind of averages out to like what's the incidence of and frequency of different types of
Sure. And it's
experiences
like
that shape us.
what you practice grows stronger? So
Right,
like
right.
you may not naturally be like whatever it is that you want to be in your life. But as you practice, maybe as you practice more peacefulness, as you practice to learn how to process your feelings, as you practice to be able to sit maybe with your child's big emotions, which feel intolerable to you, as you practice that stuff, and you don't have to be perfect out of it. You can be
Yeah.
completely imperfect and not get it right a bunch of times. But as you practice those things, what you practice grows stronger. And so, if you're here watching this, and if you're listening to Diana and you're listening to the other experts here, you're filling yourself, you're watering good seeds to then take. And this is like a way of practicing, that beautiful connectedness and attachment, and in a very practical way. So good for you. What you practice grows stronger.
Yeah, I love that. It kind of reminds me of that quote about like the best time to plant the tree would have been 20 years ago, but the second best time is today. So if you're showing up for the
Definitely.
first time today is good enough, good enough parenting. Like the power of showing up is like the first step to transformation. So I'd love for you to dive into into what role mindfulness plays in attachment and how we can strengthen attachment through mindfulness.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that attachment, I don't know, in my mind, at least right now, it kind of has a little bit of a bad rap, or it had a little bit of
Uh-huh.
a bad rap from things like, well, some resources that had some really great things, but made attachment seem like a set of activities that you do. Like
Mm,
if you sleep with your baby a certain way, if you hold your baby a certain way, or if all these different like sort of sets of activities that you do, those will mean a secure attachment. If you are a stay-at-home parent and you
right.
you know eschew working, and then your child is only attached to you, and unfortunately, that can lead to a lot of guilt and a lot of frustration in parents, because I mean, the truth is, like, no human being, humans did not evolve to just be attached to a single person. It's like we were always,
Hmm.
that whole it takes a village thing is true.
Yeah.
And kids can have a healthy attachment to lots of very different figures in their life, including co-parents and caregivers and
Hmm.
babysitters and stuff like that. Excuse
Hmm.
me. But so I think that it's really helpful to understand that it doesn't matter. Like if you need to like have your child sleep in a separate room so you can get a full night's sleep so you are not a raging dragon, that
Yeah.
is okay, and your child
Yeah.
can still have a healthy attachment. It really, the piece about mindfulness really comes into play because, I've talked for the Mindful Parenting podcast. I've been running it for 10 years now. And I've talked to so many experts like, Gordon Neufeld and, Dr. Sue Johnson. I had one of the last conversations with her before she died this past year.
Mm. Um,
And and the interesting thing about attachment is that it's like it's about it's about a feeling. It's not about a set of actions that you take, like a bit set of boxes that you're ticking. It's about a feeling of security in yourself. So if you as a parent can rest in yourself, if you can be at ease in yourself, if you can sit for a few minutes without reaching for the phone, if you can have an uncomfortable feeling and learn to explore that and tolerate it, then what happens, you can, when your child comes to you with all the different, spectrum of things that they're going to come to you with, and you can be, what I'm describing is just really being present, right? If you can be
hmm.
present for the all the incredible discomfort it is to be a human, and all the difficulties, and even to be present for your kid and all the difficulties they're going to be, that's really what creates attachment, is true presence. And there's,
Hmm.
and mindfulness is really this, ancient practice that is really just centered on helping us become present. For me, what really drives me, like I have a teacher that I've been following for many, many years. He died a few years ago, but the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, and he has a quote. He says, if you love someone, the best thing you can offer is your presence. How can you love if you are not there?
Mm. I
How
love
can you
that.
love if you are not there? And that's so true. And the thing is, sometimes what happens when we're a parent who is maybe watering our good seeds by coming, reading a ton of books and going to a ton of things, is that sometimes we're doing too much.
Hmm.
We're doing so much because we feel a not enoughness in our hearts and our souls. And sometimes what it takes to really get that sense of presence, that sense of a real attachment, is to do less. Is to stop ticking things off your list to be a better person, to be a better parent, but to actually practice to accept yourself as you are right now, flaws and all, and that's easily said and not so easily done. I know, but it, if this idea is resonating with you, whoever's listening to this, like, and you're saying, oh, maybe I do have that book stack that's like
Yeah. Yeah.
high, right? And
Guilty.
and maybe then it's time to like stop reaching outward, but to start reaching inward. And that's what mindfulness is incredible at, right? It's a practice. I kind of think of it as a brain hack that they figured out
Mm.
like 22,600 years ago, that if we stop kind of doing and we start to settle, and as we become still, all the churning that it means to be a human, it's like mud in a pool that starts to, just with time, start to settle, and then the water becomes clear. And it's something that we don't want to do because we're wired for survival. We're wired to look for the next threat. We're wired to do all the different things to keep ourselves alive, which makes sense. But when we start to slow down, and that may even be just like slowing down your steps, slowing down how fast you're brushing your teeth, slowing down,
Mhm.
are you rushing to get things done, slowing down your activities. As you slow down, you calm the nervous system. And as you calm your nervous system, we inter-are with our children. We feel their feelings, right? With all humans, we're like this. They feel our feelings. We are completely interconnected as species. And so as you calm and yourself, as you become more settled in yourself, as you become more comfortable in your own skin with all the weirdness it is to be a human, because it's not easy. It but your child feels that, and their sense of safety, their sense of security increases, because as you become a solid mountain, a steady presence where you can accept all their, you become like something the wave crashes against, their wave crashes against, and you can, become unflappable through it all. Ideally, this is like a practice, right? We practice it and grow stronger, but that's what really increases that sense of I feel secure, I feel safe, I feel like I can come to mom or dad with anything, or Grammy or whoever's watching this with anything, and I can feel that safety and security their presence, and that translates into a sense of safety and security and ease in their own skin in other parts of their life.
Oh my gosh, so much great content. So many aha moments for me, and I'd love to I have like 10 different questions to ask you. But something probably that's most relevant right now in my thoughts is like what you're basically saying, mindfulness and presence is an act. Even though it's not an action, it's an inaction. It's like it is an action, it's a practice
Mm-hmm.
of unconditional love, which we all want to give our children, right? Because what you're saying, like, I think often parents have this idea that, like, but I have to do these things so my child's happy. I have to move them back into happiness, joy, and like these states of comfort and pleasure, right? Like, because if they're not smiling and happy, then there's a problem, right? Busy, busy, busy. Fix the problem, right? The negativity bias. Whereas it's that's more like a conditional love, like we're kind of like trying to love
Mm-hmm.
them into like happiness and joy, whereas true unconditional love and mindfulness and presence intersect, where all feelings are welcome, all states are
Yes.
welcome, and just
Yes.
being with what is really our ultimate goal. It's not turning towards like the happiness and the joy 100% of the time. It's whatever it is, right? That is like the essence of enjoying your life, and really maybe not even enjoying the moments of discomfort, but that is what life is, right? It's a assortment of all sorts of different experiences.
Well, also, we know like when we push things down or we hide from things or push things away, they pop up in weird places unexpectedly, right? In
Yeah.
ways that we don't necessarily want. I mean, what you're describing is acceptance, right? I accept you exactly as you are, right? And to be able to do that unconditionalness for our kids, it starts with us. Like we have to say to ourselves, you know, I accept these feelings as they are because they're here. I accept this crappy thought that my brain thought because it's there. There it is.
Yeah.
There's a crappy thought. I don't have to believe it, right? But like this, rather than saying the piece I think that we're missing here in the conversation is this really essential attitude of mindfulness, which is um, curiosity or non-judgment. So
Mm.
mindfulness is the practice of intentionally putting our attention into the present moment, something in the present moment. Often it's like breath or sounds, or maybe it's our child. Um,
Mhm.
and this is really important, with an attitude of kindness and curiosity. And curiosity is the opposite of judgment. And judgment, this is pretty different from the way we normally are
Right,
because
right,
our brains are just naturally want to take shortcuts. Our brains naturally want to make quick decisions and judge because it's saving energy, right? It's like that's
right,
how
right.
we become efficient. Um,
Yeah.
and so when we practice, and so judgments are going to arise, they're going to happen. But as we practice to say, okay, we practice non-judgment with ourselves. Okay, I hear that thought that I'm a terrible parent, but um, that's not that helpful, right? Like okay, maybe I can look at this thing my child's doing and look at a behavior, and this mindfulness attitude really helps when our kids are coming with all kinds of behaviors, because then we can look at it with curiosity. I
Right.
wonder what's really happening here. I wonder what's driving this thing that I think is really annoying and frustrating. I wonder what is driving it, right? So if we can get into that space of um, curiosity, non-judgment, that allows us to not fight everything so much, not judge everything so much. And those are the things that really make us suffer, that make us feel like we're not enough, and then we convey that not enoughness to our children.
Yeah, I love how you're really talking about like we can only give our kids what we have inside, and the relationship we have with ourselves is going to be what we're using as a framework in our relationship with our kids, and that is basically the foundation of attachment, right? Like it's whatever
Mhm.
the attachment style is, kind of that you're relating to yourself with, is what you're going to give to your child, and so. It's a much taller order though, because parents are well known for self-sacrifice for the child, but when it comes to saving yourself, it's like, I'm second in line, right? So how can we reframe the importance of that internal self-compassionate dialogue and mindfulness for the parent? Because the impact is really on the child, right? Any thoughts on
Oh,
how we
yeah, yeah.
can, yeah.
I mean, I think there are a lot of, like, we should want to prioritize our own health and well-being, no matter what, because you're a worthy human being. But a lot of parents don't feel that way. So if it takes your child to help you do that, then that's okay. That's fine. You can do that. But it is true that our kids are crap at doing what we say and great at doing what we do. And
Yeah.
and all of the best parenting is in modeling. So, do we want to teach our kids that life ends after you have children and that you become miserable and
Yeah.
anxious and stressed out? Is that the lesson you want to give your kids? No, that's not what I want to model for my kids. I mean, they have enough reasons not to want to have kids. I don't want to give them
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
one. You know, um, and also like when they see, especially a mom always putting her needs last, like it really does send a message to women and to little girls that, women's needs are not as important. And the truth is, like, a parent's needs are just as important as kids' needs. When you have an infant, right, your needs can be more
Yeah.
delayed than an infant's needs.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true. But then pretty soon after that, you have to realize that your needs are just as important, because your ability to
Hmm.
take care of yourself mindfully, to be kind to yourself, to give yourself the things you need, like, exercise, a good night's sleep, time with supportive family and friends, maybe time to get still and be quiet, perhaps. Those are the things that are going to actually help you become the parent you want to be, because
Yeah.
when we're just sacrificing ourselves and putting everything towards our kids, then they end up without, like, a stressed out, harried, miserable parent who's really much more reactive and
Yeah.
less thoughtful in their responses than a parent who's taking time who's deliberately taking care of him or herself every day.
Yeah, and like you said, that's the role model they have for what does it look like to be an adult? And do we
Hmm.
want that for them? Do we want that state of stress and reactivity and thoughtlessness for
And
them
if
in
you're
their future parenting or marriage or
Yeah, yeah,
whatever?
yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're never getting your needs met, you know what? If you start that when they're little and then you keep it going, ultimately it leads to burnout and resentment.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen a lot of parents start to resent their kids. Like, I've given everything to you. Why aren't you X, Y, or Z back to me, right? Like, and that's not we have to take responsibility for ourselves in the relationship.
Yeah, I think sometimes to that point, I think sometimes parents or maybe like moms or whoever, like sometimes they feel like, well, somebody should take care of me. If I'm doing all this, who's going to take care of me? And you're saying, like, you are like the Frozen theme, like you are the one you've been waiting for, right? Like you are
Yeah.
your knight in shining armor. Is that right?
Definitely, definitely. So I like to say that self-care is not selfish. It is your responsibility. It's your
Hmm.
responsibility, you know? It's not your kid's job to take care of you. It's not their job to um, regulate your emotions or take care of your mind and your body. No, that's your job.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Would you tell us a little bit about how parents that are resistant to maybe meditation or what are some alternative ways to be mindful other than meditation? And then how can parents that are kind of turned off by this meditation idea or the word or the term, and they just haven't gotten in the habit of it because they think they're bad at it because they think the whole time they're trying to meditate. Like, can you dispel some of those myths and how can people feel a little bit more encouraged to try it and stick with it?
Sure. I mean, I think anybody can meditate. And I understand that there's so many ways to practice mindfulness and
Yeah.
ways, inroads into it. But I do have to say, like, when I first really, really started a practice, I had read about mindfulness for 10 years. I
Hmm.
finally was like, okay, I can sit for 10 minutes a day. I'm going to do it. And I did it. And after like 2.5 months, I remember having this realization of like, oh, I just sit here thinking the whole time. I can't do this. I just sit here thinking the whole time, this is dumb. Like, all I do is sit here thinking. But then what happened is I looked back at the rest of my life outside of my
Mm-hmm.
meditation practice, and that had changed radically. And that at that point, I was 27 years old. And until that point, I used to fall into pits of despair, upsetness. I'm a highly sensitive person. I would just feel like I couldn't handle life, you know, once a week, twice a week, every week or two, like on a pretty regular basis. And that hadn't happened for those 2.5 months at
Mm-hmm.
all. And so it was a huge, huge game changer for me. And so that can be what happens. And nobody's gonna like stop your thoughts. Like that's not happening. You're just gonna be dead or have a lobotomy if you're stopping your thoughts. So that is not the goal. The goal is to feel more at
Yeah.
ease outside of your meditation practice, to feel more relaxed outside of your meditation practice. But there's lots of great ways to practice. I think, we want to think about the idea of giving yourself time to slow down and reflect. Maybe you're going to take 5 minutes a day and you're going to sit and journal. Or maybe you're going to sit and you're going to do 10 deep breaths. And then you're going to write out what you're grateful for. Maybe you're going to do some extended exhale breathing for 2 minutes every day. But you're going to take some practices that deliberately calm your nervous system, so, because parenting gets our nervous system way up here,
Yeah.
right? And we don't
Yeah.
want that because we want to be able to use our whole brain. So we want to be able to calm our
Yeah.
nervous system, get out of that stress response. So any practices that are going to get you out of your stress response that you can commit to on a regular basis are going to be great for you. So at night I write down 5 things I'm grateful for. In the morning I do some meditation, and I do all the things because I needed it all. It's just I'm a highly sensitive person. I am not naturally like a calm, chill person. I needed it all. And so I just encourage people to find one thing that helps, that is nourishing to your heart, nourishing to your mind, that helps to slow you down. Sometimes it can be a practice like I get in the car, and in the car I'll pause and I'll take 3 deep, slow breaths before I drive. Or, something like that. There's a whole bunch of practices that you can do. And, if you can start one little thing and it starts to feel good, maybe something else will do it. But also, I think, you can do, I have a 3-minute sitting meditation on mindfulmamamentor.com that it's just 3 minutes long. And it can really actually make quite a difference in your life. It's pretty amazing.
Now, I love that you're highlighting like even 3 minutes can make a difference in your life. And yet, I still hear parents rebuttaling with like, but who's got 3 minutes? So I always get into like curious about like why does it feel like for so many of us in parenting and the busyness, like this busyness factor and productivity, why is it so hard to make 3 minutes for a mindfulness exercise, yet we can spend hours scrolling or shopping for things we don't need, like a trip to, Target or browsing on Amazon, wherever your favorite store is, right? Like we do actually have more than 3 minutes for activities, that I don't know, maybe in the beginning they have a dopamine hit and it's like a motivator.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like sitting with your uncomfortable emotions doesn't feel like dopamine. You don't get that
No,
feedback
no.
in the beginning. So what makes it so hard? What do you think? I don't know.
I know we definitely have a natural avoidance to it. Like, so they did a study at one of the universities, I forget which one, where they sat people down. They didn't tell them they were meditating or anything. So I just have
Uh-huh.
to preface that, but they just sat them down in a room until with nothing else except like a little buzzer that they could press and give themselves an electric shock.
I think
And that was it. And
I've
they
heard
just
about
left
this.
them there for 10 or 15 minutes. I forget what it was. And some crazy number, like 60% of them gave themselves an electric shock just to have something to do. So if you have aversion to sitting still and doing nothing, like you're not alone. That's pretty natural state
Yeah,
of
yeah.
humanity. Um, but also check yourself. Like you, Diana, you described that really beautifully. Like we have this addiction to productivity. We're trained, in the, especially in the United States, to that our value is in what we can do, and doing more and more and acquiring more and achieving more and things like that. And for our kids, our not value is not what we can do. It's our value is in our presence and how we can be there, really be there. Not like 100% of the time, but maybe like 30% of the time. If we could really be there, that would be amazing, right? Um,
Hmm.
but the thing is, like, we get to this in this mode of that achievement, go, go, do, do. And we think, okay, I'm going to get these things done. I'll go to Target and I'll get this thing. And then I have to do this thing for school. And there's just so many things to do. It's ridiculous. So maybe simplify that if you can. But we think we have this mindset of like, oh, I'm going to get to like the lake house with the family. And then I'm
Yeah.
going to be so present. I'm going to really be there with my kid. I'm going to just soak it up. I'm going to have nothing to do. It's going to be great. But what happens when you do that? You get to that lake house or whatever that thing is where you've decided then you're going to actually give yourself permission to enjoy your life. And you get there and you're there with your kid, and what happens? You can't enjoy it. You can't enjoy it. Your brain goes to, oh, but I need to do this, and I need to do this, and I need to do this, because that's what you
Hmm.
practice every single day. And
Yeah.
what you practice grows stronger. So if
Hmm.
you want to have a chance of actually being really present for your kid, and trust me, those old ladies are right when they say it goes by so fast.
Yeah.
What
I
I
know they're
wouldn't
right, and
give
I'm
to
dreading like agreeing with them one day, like, oh no,
what
here
I wouldn't
I am.
give to be like, my daughters are like, 8 and 5 again, and just to
Yeah,
like be
yeah.
really there. But we train our brains and we miss it all. We're kind of there like halfway, right? And
Hmm.
that's a damn shame.
Yeah,
This is this
yeah.
one wild, precious life. We have this one time with our kids. We have these 18 years, these 18 summers. We have really, the truth is only this moment. And are we going to
Yeah.
make this moment all about the to-do list? You have to practice every day to
Hmm.
train yourself. And if you want to actually be present, you have to practice that.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I love that. And I think one of the, as we wrap up, I think one of the things that parents do is they add things to their to-do list as so to avoid having opportunities to be like present and mindful, because I think one of the struggles we have naturally is sitting with our discomfort, sitting with
Mm-hmm.
our own discomfort. We don't know what to do with it. Like nobody taught us this. Like, so I'm going to go into this discomfort and then what's going to happen? It's going to overwhelm me. It's going to feel bad. How
Mm.
can I resource myself in that when I am sitting, if I try it and I sit with it, and it feels uncomfortable, what happens next? Is there something that's going to actually feel better after a while, or how can I resource myself?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. And we talk about this a lot in mindful parenting and raising good humans. I talk about this a lot because yeah, we weren't given the tools to do that. But to be able to process moments of discomfort, what happens? It's kind of like we think, oh, I'm just going to be in this discomfort, and then what? It's scary. But the
Right.
truth is that as you really turn your attention fully to whatever the sensations you're feeling, maybe the tight chest or the tight jaw or the
Hmm.
heat or the shoulders, the stomach, that feeling of like, I got to get out of here dissipates and often completely goes away just from the fact of really being present with it. And then as we sit with it, we can bring in the really healing, wonderful practice of self compassion.
Hmm.
I'm putting my hand on my heart here because this is what I always do. You know, that healing touch, putting a hand on your heart, saying to yourself, this is a hard moment, you know, this is hard. Remembering that other people feel this way. You have felt this way. Diana's felt that way. Hunter's felt that way. You know, so many people. And this is a hard moment. And just offering yourself some kindness. And those two practices of giving attention, which
Hmm.
paradoxically helps the feelings
Yeah.
move on by, and then self compassion are really incredible, incredibly healing practices.
I love that. What a great way to kind of wrap up with, like, I think a lot of the obstacles parents face in getting started. And really, this whole conversation has been about using this practice. Like you said, it's a practice of mindfulness, and practicing this over and over. And this is what is most important in secure attachment in our relationship with our children. If you prioritize anything on your to-do list, put this somewhere toward the top, right? Because it is an activity that is a huge contribution to the results you're looking for, which is a child that feels safe in the world, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and so just like that practice I just described, like of processing uncomfortable feelings, as you do that, and then if you do that in the presence of your child, they watch you
Hmm.
do that. They see it, they absorb it by osmosis. It's not something you have to teach them, it's just something they
Yeah.
watch. And so it's a two for one deal.
Yes, yes. And that is, talk about productivity. That is the most productive thing you could
Very
do, right?
productive.
So we come full circle. All right, awesome. So would you tell us a little bit about the freebie you have for the audience today?
Sure. I believe it is you just yelled, now what? So
Mm,
we're all going to have moments where we're human and we're reactive with our kids. So, what are some mindful parenting steps when you can take when you yelled to really reconnect? And actually, you know, sometimes we can get even closer after a conflict rather than if there were no conflict at all. So, there's 5 steps to and scripts you can do for what to do when you just yelled.
oh, awesome. I love that because everybody can qualify for that. You know, not everybody can do the stuff to stop yelling, but eventually if we all end up there, there's something to do at that point as well that's actually going to repair things and turn things around possibly. So, yeah, I really appreciate your time and your expertise. So much wisdom shared today. And I know this is a journey for individuals that aren't used to practicing mindfulness meditation. So definitely, like, get curious, like Hunter said, get curious and explore it a little bit at a time. There's no destination here. It's just a journey. So really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today, Hunter.
Yeah, thank you, Diana. It's been really a pleasure. Thanks for putting this
Yeah.
all together.